Things relate to one another in complex ways. Something can be so stupid that it becomes funny, and so funny that it becomes painful. So painful that it then grants a sensation of catharsis, a sensation of freedom. Endless relationships are possible. I will explain to you my interpretation of a particular event in the Star Wars saga, how and why I believe it is both idiotic and sublime, a monumental failure that also points towards transcendent triumph. So buckle up, buccos. On many levels, the demise of the character referred to as Luke Skywalker in the motion picture titled The Last Jedi is a sad affair. I trust you are familiar with this. Beyond the fact that the death of a beloved fictional hero is always to be tinged with at least a dash of sadness, no matter how heroically badass it might otherwise be as well, they did, in the parlance of our times, our boy dirty. That is, at least to my knowledge, the popular consensus. The movie set scene is featured in is beyond moronic. A disparate, incoherent, nonsensical jumble of recurring tropes, corporate socialism propaganda, and the laziest, stupidest plot conveniences and plot holes. You can basically feel, while watching it, as the slow minutes tick by, your IQ bleed out. Scene by scene, detail for detail, it's an embarrassment. If The Force Awakens was a cowardly, by-the-numbers repackaging of a cult classic, The Last Jedi is the sort of film that truly makes one worry and wonder about the future of mankind. Enough people have made videos about that subject. I won't elaborate too much on the movie in general, but rather focus on the death of Luke Skywalker, since I perceive it to be not only stupid and incoherent, sad and limp, but something that reaches grand depths as well. I perceive it to be both abominable and wondrous, a cultural jewel of our time. The scene where Luke Skywalker dies fits perfectly within the catastrophe that is The Last Jedi. I am not here to argue otherwise. I won't try to convince you that the scene is the lone exception, no. It features all the unfortunate trademarks that grant the movie the dubious honor of causing and marking the death of Star Wars. At least in the hearts of many, if not most, of its longtime fans. I remember leaving the theater after watching The Last Jedi with a smile on my face. I turned to my companion, who was also smiling, and we discussed the postmodern nightmare we had just witnessed as we strolled leisurely among our fellow humans. Oh, the joy of the pre-pandemic world. Will we ever return to the innocence of those days when the proximity of our fellow man wasn't necessarily a cause for concern? But I digress. Let me share with you then the fruits of that discussion. First, the flat facts of the scene, without delving too deeply into the context, as I am certain you all have seen the film. Luke Skywalker mysteriously appears to save the day. He confronts the army of the First Order, miraculously survives a heavy laser barrage, and then confronts Kylo Ren in a lightsaber duel, all to give the surviving members of the Resistance time to escape via a secret cave in the back of their stronghold. In the end, it is revealed Luke is in fact not there physically. What we have seen is only a mirage, an illusion projected from across the galaxy by the old Jedi Master. This trick apparently requires immense effort, and therefore, after the Force hologram of Luke disappears on Crate, the real Luke dies, and also disappears, just as his hologram did, facing a double sunset on the distant world of Act 2. The movie functions in a very curious way, just as Rise of Skywalker, the first of the trilogy, did. It restricts its vocabulary exclusively to beats, tropes, shots, and lines of dialogue stemming from the first trilogy. It would be one thing for them to try and replicate what made that first series of movies popular, but here they are beyond strict. There is nothing original in it. It's a rule for them. They cannot do anything if it's not somehow a reference to those 3 films that started it all. It feels insane, machine-made, the product of some perverse artificial intelligence. This combined with the total weightlessness of the scene, consequence of a world that makes absolutely no sense other than following some strange marketing logic, turns all the characters into ghosts. One can talk about lazy or convenient script writing, but those terms fail to do justice to just how stupid, incoherent, and free of any feeling of inevitability and consequence The Last Jedi is. As I said, if you want more details on that, just watch the film with your brain turned on, or listen to many of the endless videos on YouTube that go in detail into the film's faults. You feel as if the characters are about to turn to the camera and speak directly to the audience at any moment. You are all the time aware it's just a sequence of reference to the original films, without much rhyme or reason beyond stringing up a series of fetishistic, nostalgia-inducing tropes and callbacks, and worrying as little as possible about having them add up into something that makes sense. All syrup, no meat. All the rules, all the methods developed to grant a sense of reality are missing. You feel the flat screen in front of you as a tangible object. Please consider those 2 words carefully, since they point towards the core of my argument. Tangible object. The death of Luke Skywalker combines reference to 2 moments in A New Hope. The duel between Darth Vader and Obi-Wan Kenobi that culminates in the disappearance of the former, and the famous scene where Luke gazes longingly at the double sunset over the desert in Tatooine. The original double sunset in the first Star Wars film, accompanied with the beautiful, if at times nauseatingly omnipresent, theme of the Force, was all about the desire for adventure burning in the heart of young Luke. Adventure is about hunger, about frustrated energy yearning to be poured into a cause, the thirst for discovery. Luke wanted to be tested and prove himself on a much grander canvas, beyond the life of a farm boy, beyond the horizon. The recurring idea here is one of a convincing feeling of externality that creates a powerful desire to go towards the external, independent world and leave your mark on it. The desire to touch something that isn't you, to make it yours somehow. The duel between Darth Vader and Obi-Wan on the Death Star ends with the old Jedi allowing himself to be cut down by his opponent. He says, "You can't win, Darth. If you strike me down, I shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine." He yields to his foe, which slashes at him, and then vanishes in thin air as the lightsaber goes through him, leaving behind only his robes. The concept is one of transcendence, of being so great you go beyond the strife, into omnipotent power. I believe you'll be surprised to discover as I lay out my argument that the death of Luke Skywalker expresses this idea of transcendence and omnipotence in a much deeper way. Let us now compare these scenes with the duel and death in The Last Jedi. Old Luke confronts Kylo Ren on Crate, but many things point to the fact his presence there is an illusion. The actor looks different than he did on Act 2 and wields his blue lightsaber, which should be impossible. In the course of the fight, the two combatants never actually touch. Eventually, Kylo realizes the ruse, pushes his sword through Luke's chest without consequence, without harming him at all, as he is just an image without substance. This explains as well why the powerful lasers of the Last Order's walkers had no effect on the hero. But the idea that Luke isn't really there infects the rest of the supposedly tangible world of Crate as well. During the course of the film, we have witnessed a complete disregard for the rules of the Star Wars universe, which aren't strict to begin with, since it's more of a fairy tale fantasy film rather than speculative science fiction. It feels almost like a conscious gesture from the filmmaker to have Luke project himself as a hologram, as a picture across the galaxy, negating the light years that exist between the two locations. You hear people criticize poorly implemented CG creations, saying they look superimposed. But here the idea is that Luke is just superimposed, a visual trick, an empty reference, pointing to the extreme stupidity and laziness of the people behind it, yes, but pointing also to profound realities hidden within language, the subject of my video. To express my argument in the simplest possible way, fiction in general and movies in particular typically aim to convince you of the reality of the worlds they portray. This, of course, can be achieved in many different ways and mean many different things. A film can be convincing as a fairy tale, as a dream, as a portrait of our current times, as a believable representation of the mind of a delusional person, etc. The Last Jedi, as a postmodern, self-referential film completely sealed within the closed circuit of the Star Wars tropes, fails to be convincing on every possible level, but its failures sync up with the events surrounding the death of Luke Skywalker in a very beautiful way. The weightlessness of the film is expressed by the falsehood of the duel between Kylo and Luke, and as the lightsaber is pushed into the holographic chest, one is reminded of the fact the fearsome weapon is in fact only light, just as the images we see projected on the cinema screen are. None of it adds up. It is just empty blah blah blah. The victories of our heroes are completely hollow, as they are trapped doing and redoing what they did before in an endless cycle, without progressing or growing an inch. Luke is nowhere really. The distances separating the two locations evaporate as we become painfully aware they are most likely just different projections onto a green screen. It is this realization that kills Luke. He sees the true nature of the Force. Since the Force is omnipotent, it has no external foe or lover to engage with. There is nothing outside of it. Luke dies as he realizes this truth when gazing into the double sunset. The narrative he is in is a circular one, and the surface of it now leads back only to more surface. An idea laid out by Jacques Derrida. Language is not composed of two elements, word and meaning, but just one, word leading into word. The Bible begins this way. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. All of Luke's ambitions have failed, but it is also his desires, his entire world, that has been made obsolete by this awakening to the true nature of the Force, the true nature of the Star Wars saga, and the medium of cinema. Language omnipotent suffers no change, no disruption. Energy is never created or destroyed, it only transforms. Luke dissolves as a ghost into the Force at the same time he dissolves as an image into the screen, as pixels. Something very similar to the ending of 2001: Space Odyssey. Luke and the audience were led to the realization that words lead only to other words, and movement in this universe is illusory, as it is just the expression of a single omnipotent, wish-granting force. We crucially see his back disappear, which is so interesting as a character seen from the back acts as a visual icon inviting viewers to project themselves onto it. As Luke fades away, we also fade away from the world of Star Wars. There are countless reviews of the film which state the critics' interest in the galaxy far, far away is no more. The irony of this moment is similar to what we see in One Punch Man, where transcendently strong Saitama is expressed to be not really part of the world he inhabits. He is drawn in a way that points to him being a drawing, and in consequence his infinite power is just, well, ink on paper. Many people see in this idea something horrible, something deeply depressing, but they don't realize what omnipotence entails. True omnipotence has no end. The sense of tragedy emerges from a concrete image. Failure of meaning is a type of meaning, and understanding the mechanics of meaning is a very exciting step in the cognitive development of our species. I celebrate the death of Luke and, hopefully, the death of a franchise once inspiring, now turned odious. May they make way, may they pave the way to new horizons in popular culture, away from the tired Manichaeism, into the greater richness and complexity of works such as Dune, Gundam, Evangelion. Worlds without good and evil, worlds of trade-offs. Catch you later.